good. So let's lie on the back. We'll do like a moving meditation. So contemplating through movement, connecting to our lower body. And so what we'll start with is just lying on the back with our feet on the mat in the familiar constructive rest pose, where we just kind of pause for just a couple of breaths. So you can wiggle a little bit, taking your feet onto the mat, maybe rolling over onto the toes and the heels, inner foot and outer foot, so you kind of feel the surface of the sole of the foot. You could lift your toes and feel that, lift your arches and feel that. Pressing your heels down and noticing the tone coming through the legs. It's just kind of starting to sense the feet. And then taking a breath in, just a little glimpse for the rest of the body. So maybe the shoulders can drop a little bit more. Maybe your jaw can relax a little bit more. And just notice what's in the foreground, what your energy level is. So as we start to move, you can take that into account. And also interesting to notice what is it, the baseline now, so we can tune in later at the end of the practice and notice any shifts. And then what I'll do is I'll keep the feet on the mat and I press my feet down and I lift my hips up ever so slightly. So there's just a little gap and I'm going to start to move my pelvis. And so by that I mean I just want this to be as intuitive as you can make it. So by that I mean you pressing the feet down, maybe 1 foot at a time, and you're starting to notice the relationship between like your knees moving, your feet moving, and your pelvis moving. So I can give you some suggestions what you could do from here, but more into your own sense of, oh look, my pelvis can move to the side, right and left. Also the fact that you have two pelvic halves, so you could have your right buttock moving down towards the ground while the left stays somewhat lifting, and then it can change that the left bum can drop downward while the right bum stays lifted. So spend a little moment. It could be circles, but it doesn't have to be circles. It could be sideways, side to side. Feel your tailbone making different shapes in the air. I've heard one teacher offer try to spell your name with your tailbone. So that's basically what I mean. And as you move, you might start to notice I start to get somewhat tired here, or I can start to feel some of the muscles as I'm exploring these ways that maybe I don't move that often from this area. And then we'll just keep just a couple of more moments. Can you keep it really soft and playful and curious? And feeling this relationship between my feet pressing down and releasing pressure, maybe toes lifting, knees moving, and how that then transpires into your pelvis wiggling from side to side, up and down. As soft as you can, as soft as you can. And then slowly bringing it back down onto the ground. Taking a breath. And then from the feet and the pelvis, we're going to come a little bit more attention to the hips. So what we'll start with is bring your knees to your chest. So you could have your right hand on right knee, left hand on left knee, and begin to circle your knees. So at first, we're going to use the hands. So just to kind of feel the movements, doing circles one way and doing the circles the opposite way, and letting yourself feel your hips. But then at one point start to circle the knees kind of in opposite ways. So when one knee comes to chest, the other knee moves away, and then you move them away from each other. And essentially where I'm going to try to guide you towards is you're going to let the hands go, and you're just going to let your hips move. which means, you know, your focus is on the hips, but it might be that one leg straightens, either it straightens towards the back of the mat, or maybe it straightens up towards the ceiling. So I'm feeling into movement, soft, steady movement, but it arises from kind of your body, your hips, as fluid. Again, as I said, I want this to be like a meditation. So sensation, noticing, not one particular form that you need to follow. And then from the hips, I'm going to take the attention to the knees. And the knees, at first, we could just move straightening the knees and bending the knees, or flexing and extending the knee. So that's what the knee joint does. There's like this hinge movement through the knees. But then with your attention to the knees, like the movement originating from the knees, see what other shapes your legs can make. And of course, all of what you do, how you move from the knees, is still going to move your hips. But see if you again are kind of feeling it differently when we initiate movement from a different part of the body. It's a play, as it was our focus for this series. It's a play, it's not a serious thing. And so a couple of more rounds. I'm paying more attention to the knees. Maybe the hands want to touch the knees to help the awareness settle there. And then lastly, we're going to let the legs, the feet, face up towards the ceiling, comfortably so the knees can be however bent you want them to be. And then we look at what the ankles can do. So you're going to move your ankles around and your toes a little bit. And they could make circles, they could flex and dorsiflex. But then also explore the toes of the feet facing towards each other, and the soles of the feet facing away from each other. So when I do this movement a few times, that's again when I start to feel some muscles getting quite tired, because again, it's not something that I do so consciously so often. So inversion, eversion from the soles of the feet. So this is a couple of more rounds here of movement, crunching the toes and then opening them and drawing them down, separating them, so all those sorts of things. Another breath. Sweet. And then let's take the feet onto the mat. If it's at all comfortable for you, you could even straighten the legs, see if that feels good for your lower back. And what I just want you to notice is this was yoga. We were bringing awareness to our movement and to our body. We didn't do that much, but can you sense your legs maybe somewhat differently? Give it another couple of breaths. Or just like the way you inhabit your legs, right? How present can you be to sensations in their legs and your feet, your lower body? And then let's hug them in. Either do a few rolls on the back, rolling up and down, or roll to one side if the rolling up and down doesn't really feel that good. And then we'll meet on all fours. And we'll keep with the toes for just a little bit longer. So I'll be towards the back end of my mat, and I'm going to tuck the toes under. So we're going to do our little toe pressure here, toe squat here. You could start with your hands down on the ground so that then there's less pressure on the soles of the feet. And if you're going to stay here, maybe just add a little bit of like a wiggle for the spine and for the neck, so other parts of the body can start to get involved as well. But if you want to give it a try, you could also start to walk yourself sitting higher up. So more pressure for the toes, more pressure for the maybe stretch through the soles of the feet. So see how you go. This is something that maybe takes a little bit of kind of practice and coming back to this to learn to enjoy it. But if you're here with me, then I would like you to interlock your hands behind the head. So if your hands are down, you can't do that obviously, so then you just wiggle your spine. But if you're here with your toes tucked under. Let's explore the other end, so the base of the neck, the base of the head. And I'm going to rest my head to the palms of my hands as they create this hammock. And then as if I want to lift or get my neck a bit taller. So I'm very gently just kind of lifting through the back of the neck. Not aggressively, obviously, but as if I want to get my spine, a little bit more space in my spine. And then I feel all of that distance from the toes all the way to the back of the neck. If you need to, untuck them, so don't suffer, but a little bit of discomfort maybe can be something that we can also, it can be a useful practice. I'll take a few more breaths, getting taller through the neck. Just imagining that space in my feet, in my spine, in my neck. Take another breath in, another breath out. And then first I'm going to release the hands, and I see how much of that length can I still feel or sense without forcing. So I'm not like holding myself rigidly tall, I'm just noticing. And then let's liberate the toes. So untuck them. Maybe you want to pat them down a little bit. And then we're going to sit back onto the heels. And so similarly, for some of you, that is already a stretch for the front of the ankles. So if that's happening, you're going to stay here. And for others, there might be possibility to lean back and lift the knees slightly off. So the front of the ankles, the front of your shin bones are now going to get that stimulation. So if that's not an option, then you're just going to sit back for another couple of breaths. One more inhale, one more exhale. Good. And then we're going to take the knees back down. And one last thing from here with that little bit of a toe focus for now. I'm going to tuck the toes under. I'm going to walk the hands, they somewhere close to the knees. And then a couple of times I'm going to explore various squats from here. So the hands down, I'm going to roll over the toes towards the squat. And whether your heels come down or not is not that important. But also you might now feel your whole back body. So maybe the chin can come towards the chest. And do that a few times, kind of placing the toes back down. I sometimes like to come into a back bend here. So I'm playing with both the spine and the back body, and the back body starting from the soles of the feet. And if you can drift back all the way to a squat, you could do that. And you could also play taking your feet a little bit wider, so you come towards a wider squat. And then what happens if the knees and feet are a little bit closer, more closer together? What would that look like? How would you negotiate that? Good. And then next time when you're back, knees on the ground, walk your hands slightly forward, come to all fours. Let's do a few rounds of cat and cow. So starting with rounding and arching the back, and then pretty quickly let yourself move towards letting the spine move in whatever way it wants to move. So just spiraling. Take it for another few rounds. Good. And then we'll stretch the right leg to the back of the mat. A little bit, I think, what we did last week. And we're going to do a little bit of this bouncing back and forth. So I'm kind of like reaching back through the heel, forward through the ground. Sometimes I come to the fingertips for that, but could also be palms down, just feeling that bounciness. Give it one more round. And then come and step the right foot, so you're gonna slide it forward and then step it, and it's now going to bend. So I'm going to step it. It could be in line with the left toes. You're going to figure that out, because I'm going to step the foot onto the ground and then lean back into that similar kind of like a one-sided squat. So if you bring it more forward, it might be a little bit more challenging. If you keep it a little bit more towards the back, it might feel different. So play with that. And then let's do that one more time. So I'm going to come to all fours. I'm going to slide the right leg back. I'm going to keep the toes tucked under. I'm going to have a little bounce, bounce, bounce back and forth. And then I'm going to slide the toes forward somewhere on that right side and lean back. And again, feeling that whole back body curling in, chin to chest. Take another breath here. And then this time when you come back forward, keep the right toes where it is so that you can step it towards the front of the mat. We're going to lean slightly forward with the hips. If you want to use blocks, you could. We're going to move forward and back a few times. So straightening towards the knee, however much it's willing to straighten. And it really is up to you whether you want to bring that right hand to the outside of the right leg or whether you want to keep the hands on the inside. And so I want to try to have full control. So as I lean forward, I keep pressing my right foot down onto the ground. And as I lean back, and I let my hips kind of drift back towards the heels, so I play with that as well. How far back do I let the hips drift? Maybe consider tucking those back toes under and letting the bum come all the way back to the heel, so you're still stimulating the sole of that left foot. And then we've done this before, I think a couple of weeks ago. So you could stay here where your hands on the ground and you kind of have, that is one of the ways how you control your body's movement. To make it more active would be to come into lunge, but then fully in control as I come forward, I'm actively pressing the front foot down. So at any point I can back off. And then when I move backward, I again move slowly and with full control. So there's at no point am I just kind of dropping my body weight forward and back. See how your knees react to this, right? So there should be no discomfort in that back knee as you move back. And so I'll go one more time, more with the active version or more with the support of the ground. So the hands can be the ones that push you back away from the ground. Beautiful. And then next time when you're forward, I'm going to keep the hands on the inside, tucking the back toes under if they're not already, and then straightening into the back leg. And again, if you have blocks, this one could also be good with the blocks. I'm now going to lean back, so the back knee is going to bend. Front foot might come off the mat as I lean slightly back, and then I bring the weight forward. And it starts to be a little bit like a springy movement. So if you have blocks, they can be really useful for that. So a couple of more rounds. So the back knee bends as I lean back. I press onto the back foot as I transfer weight forward. We'll do just one more. And then I'm going to use that little springiness of the back foot to spring my left foot forward. So what I did here is I loaded that back leg and then I'm springing it forward. A little bit like what we did a couple of weeks ago with the springy practice. I'm going to fold forward with really soft knees, letting the head tangle, and then slowly beginning to straighten through that right knee. So straightening through that right knee. So focusing still more on that right side, the back of the right leg. Again, if you have blocks, the hands could be on the blocks, helping with this a little bit. Give it a breath in. Give it a slow, steady breath out. Maybe walk your hands a little bit over to the left so we get some different flavors as you feel into the back of the leg and the side of the leg. One more steady breath in. Good. And then bringing your hands back, and this time we're just going to step the feet towards the back of the mat. So you're going to walk yourself back to your first downward facing dog, and you're going to let that dog wiggle a little bit. Feel the feet of the dog, Feel the ribs of the dog. Give it another breath in. Give it another breath out. And then bring your knees down onto the ground. Settle the hands under the shoulders. Send your left leg to the back of the mat. We're going to find our bounciness here. So bouncing back, forth. So there's a little bit of a rhythm to it. And you want to find this springy, rubbery quality, something again that we've been playing with in the past weeks. And then I'm going to let that leg, that foot, start to come forward, and the toes are going to come onto the ground, whether they are in line with the right knee, a little bit further back from the right knee. You're going to have to figure that out in your own body. I keep the hands forward as I lean back. I really draw the chin to my chest. I feel the back body. Take a breath into the back body. And then let yourself come back forward, and we'll do that one more time. So I find a little bounce. And then I bring the left foot forward. I lean my buttocks back. I drop my head, and I breathe into the back body. Good. This time I keep the left foot where it is as I come forward over the shoulders, over the wrist with my shoulders, and then step the left leg forward. Either hands are on the inside or on either side. We start to play with letting the hips now move back and forth. And as the hips move back, you can play with how far back do they go? Do they go all the way back towards that right heel? Does it feel good to keep the right toes tucked under? If you need a blanket under that right knee, you can do that. And then same as on the other side, feel free to keep the hands as a way to control the movement differently, or more if you're coming upright, it becomes more active, as it is your muscles around the hips that are going to resist gravity, both as you come forward and both as you move backward. It's an active movement, active range that I have full control over. Good, I'll go maybe one more time. Whatever arm movement works for you. You can make it up as you go. And then the second one, if you find the second one challenging, you could come back to this one. But tucking the toes under, consider using blocks. So this time when I lean back from this position, so the back knee needs to bend and coming forward. But I want you to play with weight going into the back foot, weight coming into the front foot. And then can this become a little bit springy? A little bit springy. So again, I'm kind of preparing myself to step the left foot forward. Right foot forward. And at one point it's going to happen. I'm going to spring off that back foot, and the right foot is going to come to the top of the mat. I find one more forward fold from here. First the knees, both knees can be soft, determining if you need some support under the hands, and then gradually begin to straighten through the left knee. It doesn't have to go all the way straight, but I'm zooming in, feeling more that left side from the sole of the foot through the back of the leg into the hip, and then maybe the hands walk a little bit over to the right. Give it one more breath. And then walk the hands back through the center bend into both knees. Give it a little moment here. Both knees are bent, maybe a little bouncing up and down from here. So your hips are kind of going to bounce a little bit up and down. Shake the head out. And then straighten both knees to a point where you feel the backs of the legs, and then soften them. Do that once more. Straighten the knees so you can feel the backs of the legs, and then soften them. And then we're going to curl slowly up. We're going to keep the arms tangling, pressing down through the feet, curling up, curling up, curling up. And once you're up, let yourself roll your shoulders a little bit. We're up in standing. We're up feeling both feet on the ground. So find the distance that works. Feel for the rest of the body. And then let's take the hands behind the head, just like we did when we were toe squatting. Open the elbows out to the sides, however much is comfortable. And then without pushing your head forward, actually push the back of the neck long and back of the head into your hands. And then as if you want to lift, as if you want to again get yourself a little bit taller. Breathe into the space that you're creating and try not to rib thrust. So don't push the ribs forward. So keep this integrity of the natural curves in the spine, and then slowly begin to keep the neck in the length, begin to lift your heels off the mat. So getting really tall as you can possibly be. Not too much tension again around the shoulders. Maybe there's a little bit there, but just playing that edge of letting there still be soft as you challenge yourself. Keep the eyes soft. Take a breath in. Take a slow breath out. And then begin to slowly lower the heels down onto the ground. Try to keep the length as you lower the hands down, and just try to sense without forcing, without like too actively pushing upward, just kind of feeling tall, feeling space in the spine, all the way through the feet though. So that's our connection there. And then we'll take one more movement for the spine, but we're going to try to feel the feet rooted. So I'm going to draw the hands back up into that same position. I'm going to have like a tiny bit of a back bend as the breastbone lifts. I'm going to breathe into the front body now. And now, as if I'm swimming a backstroke, I'm going to have the right elbow lift and turn towards the back while the left comes forward. And then the left elbow lifts and turns back, and you're going to let your chest swim as well. Now you're going to keep your knees soft, and what if your elbow is really connected to your foot? So as the right elbow lifts, I really connect my right foot down. The toes might even lift. And as the left elbow lifts, I connect the left foot down. So see if the dance of that seems to be so much in the upper body is actually your hips are moving. There's a little swimming action that the hips are doing. There's a little movement that the knees are doing. And there's a little weight shift that is happening through the soles of the feet. Let's go a few more rounds with the backstroke. So it's like the swimming, like you would swim backward. And then change it into a forward stroke. So the elbows are going to swim forward now. So there's just a little rounding forward. I'm not going to go all the way forward, but my spine is just a little bit curling forward. Move slowly enough so you can draw as big of circles with your elbows, but then don't lose the connection to your lower body as the upper body is doing its thing. Feel that you're really pressing, feel the weight shift through foot to foot, from knee, from hip. Go one more forward stroke. And then pause when you're at the center. Let the arms lower. And now feel your chest, feel your breath, and maybe sense your connection also to the soles of the feet. From soles of the feet actually all the way to the crown of the head. And then we'll take a little flow from the top of the mat, so you're going to feel the feet grounded as the arms lift. So there's that connection that we've established. And then bow forward on the exhale. Soften the knees however much they need to. Send your right leg to the back of the mat. And then take the back heel down so you have warrior two legs happening. So the front heel cuts the back foot in half more or less. Whew. Circle yourself up. So as you bend that front knee, just kind of establish connection through the soles of the feet. We'll play with the feet first. I'm going to lift the front heel off the mat. So again, a weird one that we don't often do. And maybe even lean slightly forward. If your knee says no to that, don't push it. But you know, actually it's quite fine. And then you're going to place the heel down, and then again we're going to do that weird thing where we bend into the back knee. And so for that, sometimes you kind of need to find a hip hinge and lean slightly forward with your chest as well. And then move between the two. So weird foot action from warrior, where the front heel comes off and the weight comes onto the toes. And believe it or not, your hips will really kind of thank you for it. So doing weird stuff. Cool, I'll go one more time with that lower body foot focus. Different muscles are needing to be engaged. So if we come out of our pattern a little bit, what we usually do. And then next time when the front knee bends, to keep the heels grounded. So find your warrior two shape. And then we take the attention to the upper body and the spine, so the hands are going to come behind the head again. But I'm feeling now my elbows connected to my feet. So I'm going to lean the left elbow up and the right elbow down. And I'm going to just feel the elbow reaching and connection down through the hip and through the foot. And then coming through the center, I'm going to do with the same with the right elbow lifting. And see if there can be a connection, elbow to the foot as the foot presses down. And just one more time. And make sure that you're not pushing your head forward, right? The back of the neck stays long. And breathe into the side body. And then next time when you lean forward, pause there. I'm not going to go very deep because I'm asking quite a lot from the side body, the core of the side body to hold me. I'm asking quite a bit from that. So I'm going to pause here for a bit, taking a breath in, taking a breath out. And then just let's lean in. Let's take the elbow onto the thigh. Let's reach for a moment through that right hand. Again, it starts as if my fingertips are intimately connected to the back foot, the right foot. Take a breath in, take a breath out. And then let's curl the hand down. The back heel lifts up. Let's take a step back. Let's visit another dog posture. Dog posture. Take a moment in your downward facing dog. Shake out what needs to be shaken out. Either knees down or plank pose. What do you have energy for today? Feel the soles of the feet. Feel your legs. And then let's lower down onto the belly. Take your hands under your forehead. Rest downward, downward, downward. And then tuck your toes under from here, belly down, everything stays down. Reach back through the heels so your quads and your knees lift off the mat. Keep your pelvis heavy and drop. So you feel the backs of the legs here. Reach back through the heels, toes are tucked under. And then keep that action as you come up onto your forearms and into a Sphinx pose. So sometimes I use this in a yin practice as a way to come into more yin Sphinx. See how your lower back reacts to that? If tucking the toes under in any way is uncomfortable, untuck them. But if squeeze through the back body, that activation through the back body, give it one more breath. And then stay in the Sphinx, forearms down. Just lower your knees, untuck your toes for a moment. Let your legs kind of widen a bit, or widen into a distance that feels good for the lower back. And give it one more breath here, with the legs more like relaxing to the ground. Feel the back bendy shape. Sweet. And then exhale, lower belly down. Take your hands under your shoulders. Lift up to all fours. Take a moment where you send your bum back towards the heels. Give it a breath in. Give it a breath out. And then let's meet in downward facing dog. Either walk yourself forward with normal step forward. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the cross walk. So I'm going to cross the right leg in front of the left leg. And then I'm going to pick up the left leg and cross it in front of the right leg. So I'm going to do like this cross-legged walk forward to the top of the mat. Just again to offer some different angles. And then as you're on the top, soften the knees. Place your hands onto your lower legs. Lift halfway up by straightening the knees, the spine by pressing down through the feet. And then begin to bow forward. Notice when there starts to be too much tension in the backs of the legs, then soften the knees. Draw the chin to chest at the bottom of this forward fold. And then let's come up with one breath. So soften the knees, still curl up, but it takes one breath. So inhale, curling up, maybe the arms float up as well. And then as you exhale, hands come in front of the heart. And then they lower down. Before we do the other side, we'll do a little interlude here again, just kind of focusing on how movement can start from the feet. So I'm going to start to do as if I have a hula hoop. So you can see once you start to move your hips, to see how wide your feet need to be. So you're hula hooping. And we could keep our attention here where we seem to be doing the movement. But now take your attention to the soles of the feet. And notice how you're rolling over to one side, forward, rolling over to other side. If you're not, really encourage that. Let your knees be soft, so knees are circling, big circles. So all of your joints in your lower legs are getting this wonderful stimulation, so don't deprive it from them. And then circle the opposite way. Good. Really feel all the joints involved. Nice. And then come to stand. Now feel your legs. Again, connecting downward. Take a breath in. See if you can remember the feel of the hands behind your head as it lengthens the back of the neck. And then from those hula hoopy feet, let's rise up. Let's bow forward, soft knees as you fold into a forward fold. Taking a halfway lift up on the inhale, this time left leg steps back into that warrior two shape. So place the back heel down, press down through both feet as you rise, standing. Get your stance set up for that little foot play from here. So I'm gonna lift the front heel, be on the balls of the front foot, maybe lean forward. See how your knee reacts to that when I reach the knee forward. And then I place the foot down and I bend into the back knee. I shift my weight to the back foot. And in order to get a little bit more of a grease happening here, you can lean forward with your chest. But I'm not rounding forward. When I lean forward, I'm keeping the curves of the spine. So it's a pure hip hinge that happens. I'm not doing a flexion in the spine. And then move on your own. Move slowly enough so you can feel those different musculature that needs to support you. And if you lean back, feel free to also, I forgot to say it on the other side, you could also come to the heel of that right foot when you come, so like a Skandasana position when you lean back onto that left heel. Good, maybe one more. And then let's settle into the warrior shape, grounding through the feet, feeling into the hips, that connection, lower body, legs, hands come behind the head, and then I'll do these little movements from side to side. So from, which did we start with? For coming slightly forward and leaning backward, but moving from the feet, or that connection downward. So I really feel those 2 points moving away from each other. So one anchor is the elbow, other one is the foot pressing down. And I breathe into those pathways that I can sense between those 2 distant points. And then we're going to take a little pause when we're leaning forward. So we're connecting to our side body strength. I'm not going to come too far forward. I'm really going to ground through the back foot. I'm going to press my head onto the hands. I feel maybe a little bit of shaking through the legs, and I let it. If it's too much, come a little bit higher. Give it another breath. Then release your left hand onto your your right elbow onto your right thigh. Reach upward through that top hand, left hand. Give it another breath. And then begin to look down, curl down, to lift the back leg up, to bring the hands down. Let's step to the back of the mat, downward facing dog. Again, if it wants to move, let it move. We'll do one more of our flow of slow plank. To pause, to lower down, slowly onto the belly, to take a little moment where everything drops, and then beginning by tucking the toes under, lifting the thighs off, lifting the kneecaps, quadriceps are on, but keep your pelvis heavy. Then climbing up onto your forearms, giving it a few breaths of feeling the squeeze through the back line, reach through the heels, breath, 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 nice and smooth. And then what changes? If you relax the legs, you untuck the toes. Give it another moment here. Beautiful. And then lower down, take the hands under the shoulders, maybe coming through a cobra, if that feels okay for your body. And then pressing away from the ground. Take the bum back to the heels. Give it a breath here. Empty it out. And then we're going to do our little shift. So you're going to come to all fours. You can swing your legs over to one side so that you can come to seated. I have a little exploration from here. So as your legs are forward, we take first a little test and then we come back to it. This little thing from somatics, how we're going to move through the soles of the feet, and we're going to test how it affects our neck. So as you sit upright so that you can come back to the same position at the end of it, and then start to lift your head. I'm not leaning back, I'm just going to lift my head and I'm going to trace my eyes and I'm going to mark a point, like how far can I see back behind me. So this is kind of a test, and then we're going to do it in the end, and we're going to see if the range has changed. So just see, what is it that I can see, and then I'm going to take the head back. I'm going to slide the right foot down onto the ground. I'm going to lean back onto the hand, so feel free to lean somewhat back and let the left leg stay relaxed. And then I'm going to slide the right foot forward. So if you can, maybe come onto your carpet or floor, or if sticky mat is too sticky, and then squeeze and crunch the toes. don't know if you can see my toes, but I'm crunching the right toes. And then I'm going to slide the foot back onto the mat. And then I'm going to lift the toes. And I'm going to feel the sole of the foot. And we'll do that about 3 more times. So I'm going to get my sticky mat out of the way so it's nicer. I'm going to slide and crunch. Relaxing. Slide and lifting the toes. Try to feel that. Try to be with what you're doing. That's our finishing meditation for the legs, is this. Crunching the toes when the leg is straight. Feeling that. Sliding it up. Lifting the toes. Feeling that. Let's do one more on this side. I actually moved, so I can't do my test afterwards. I just realized. And then for a moment, slide that leg straight, just a little feel for the right leg that did the movement. And then bring the right foot onto the mat. And then, let's bring both feet onto the mat, and then slide your left leg straight. Curl the toes in. Slide the foot onto the mat and lift the toes. Ooh, mine get a little bit crampy. And move at your own pace. We'll go about 3-4 times. Move slowly. Have a little bit of patience for this slow work. Good. And then let's slide the both feet straight. So if you are sitting in the same spot, your test is accurate. Mine is maybe not so accurate. I've moved. And then see, oh my God, but still. So we just saw it works. Working on the feet. I hope you saw that it works. And then let's take forward fold of your choice from here. So we've been working on the backs of the legs, and if you want to give it a try to take a forward fold with both legs coming forward. If that doesn't work for your body, feel free to take like a shape. And what you could do is, whichever you're taking, you could first kind of aim for coming in with a little bit more of a breastbone lifted, and we call it like a lengthened spine. So a bit more reach, a little bit more active for a couple of breaths. So legs could also be straight. I could be doing it from here, feeling into the backs of the legs more, perhaps in this way. I feel it a little bit more in the legs. And then what happens if you allow for the spine to round? Where do you feel it then? And maybe you have a preference which one you want to hold for another 5 breaths. Maybe you want to stay moving between the two, where you come slightly upright and more active, drawing the toes up, and then into that rounded back version. Maybe there needs to be still a little bit of a conversation going on. Let's give it another breath in. Another nice slow breath out. And then whichever shape you were in, letting yourself curl up to seated. Pause for a moment, let yourself feel that back body. And then take your time to start to come back onto the ground. We'll do just a little twist flow from here to finish. So you could take your feet onto your mat, letting the arms open out to the sides. Very simple windshield wiper movement twist, but experiment. So keep the feet a little bit closer at first, or maybe they even touch, or maybe there's just a little bit of a distance between the thighs and the legs. And then imagine the movement starts now from the legs getting heavy and beginning to drop over towards the right as the head rolls to the left. As maybe you feel your back body, lower back lengthening. Only drop them so much that you can have full control over to bring the legs back to the center, and then to drop the legs over to the left as the head rolls over to the right. And I'm moving slowly so that I can really pay attention. So legs are a little bit closer together as you move them from side to side. The soles of the feet can stay on, like the feet stay connected to the mat, but you're rolling from little toe side to the big toe side. Where do you feel it? And if this is where you want to stay, keep moving from here, or you could experiment. What if I move my feet a little bit wider? Maybe they come towards the edges of the mat. And what changes when I have my thighs wider? So you keep rolling in a similar manner, but you've changed the distance between the legs. And then at one point you could even take the feet off the mat so they come to either side of your mat. Just for another option. What changes? And you know our one where we are reaching a little bit through that top knee. So if you want to add that as well, so when the knees drop to the left, it's the right knee that reaches a little bit more towards the back of the mat. There's a little bit more pressure down through the inner blade of the right foot. Maybe you're lifting actively up through that little toe side of that top foot, so maybe one or two more. All of them offering just a tiny bit of a different flavor. And then gradually at one point you could slide the legs straight, or whichever is that comfortable position. We'll hold our rest for about 3 minutes or so. I'll hold space for you. Maybe you need some wiggles, maybe you need some other posture. Maybe you need to be resting on your side. So choose something that fully feels honestly relaxing. If your legs are straight, you could let them just roll a little bit in and out, so you're making sure that now that you are encouraging them to relax completely. So any of the muscle activation that we were playing with, that can now let go. That we can just relax the legs. How are you inhabiting, again, the parts of the legs, but then also that connection from the leg all the way to the crown of the head, the feel of the whole body. There's the feel of the physical body, but then there's also a feel to a certain aliveness, presence, spaciousness, however you want to name it. The more intangible, formless quality. There's an inner pulse of the breath. But if we're letting ourselves relax enough and kind of zoom out enough, maybe there's a sense of the whole body pulsating. And then as you hear my voice coming in, just notice maybe you want to just stay as you are, see if you can ignore me. Or if you know that this hour was what you had, find a transition that's slow, gradual, unrushed. I'll meet you in the seated. Have a little pause when you do come upright so that we can do our check-in here, noticing what is in the foreground. So give it a little moment. You can use this space also for any gesture that you like to bring in for the end of your practice. A little acknowledgement, gratitude, intention. And then I offer also my gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being here.